Over the years, Shell, an international company, has made significant investments in Russian oil and natural gas production. The company is also part of a joint venture which built Nord Stream 2. Last Friday, Shell purchased 100,000 metric tons of Russian crude oil at a massive discount. Shell has since apologized for the purchase and has announced that it will stop buying Russian oil. This is the right decision. I understand Shell now also intends to exit its joint ventures with Gazprom, including Nord Stream 2. Could you just give us an update in terms of the status and progress of Shell's efforts to divest these assets?
Yes, thank you, Senator Barrasso. And indeed, we did purchase a tanker of Russian crude, and since then announcements have been made. Our CEO has made it very clear that we apologize for that and are taking all steps to withdraw from our joint ventures. That includes upstream. It also includes our lubricants business in country. It includes our downstream gas stations, and it also extends to all purchases outside of country of any hydrocarbon products.
And when should we expect the divestments to be complete?
As far as a date, I'm happy to provide an update to you or to the committee. You can imagine it's a pretty detailed and process that needs to be executed and make sure that we can do that safely. The withdrawal is clear, and it'll be expedited.
Thank you. Dr. Foss, the administration is claiming that rising gas prices are all the fault of Putin's invasion of Ukraine. But gasoline prices have been rising well before that invasion. The president doesn't want to take any responsibility. Instead, he claims it is simply not true that my administration or policies are holding back domestic energy production. So here's a chart here. I want to get that into the shot with the camera if we could. We want to make sure that the witnesses can see it as well. So looking at the average weekly prices for Biden's, from the point of Biden's inauguration, which was here, at the time, we talked about $2.48 a gallon. Biden's inflation accounts for about $1.14 of that. Putin's invasion of Ukraine adds 58 cents to that. So has the Biden administration's energy policy affected current and future oil and gas production here in the United States?
We've already talked about leasing. Colette did a really wonderful job on that. Let's talk about how perception is reality. This is my really, really, really big concern. And when you're deep in the oil and gas patch, this is what you hear about the most. You don't take a lease, you can't execute on the lease unless you have capital available to you. There are threats against capital for the industry that are just simply not constructive. It's not necessary. It's really silly in many respects. The idea is to starve the industry of capital, to keep it from operating, to force us off of oil and gas before we can viably move forward with other things. Investors see that, financial markets see that, regulators see that. A lot of this is coming from nominees who are being proposed for key regulatory positions in financial markets. That gets out there. It creates uncertainty. Companies can deal with risk. You can quantify risk. Uncertainty is open-ended. That's very tough to deal with. Whether your government is with you or against you, that's a big amount of uncertainty that affects decisions. What am I going to invest in? What kind of project and when, over what time frame, and other things. So those are my biggest concerns. It's the things that are in the background that are contributing to gasoline prices today, because this is going on for a while. For over a year, we have been seeing these pressures build in financial markets. We've been hearing this discussion. It's been coming at the industry from all directions, and that takes its toll eventually, and you have to add that into the mix.
Can I get to one other thing that you talked about in your testimony? So there are 260 million cars and light-duty trucks in the United States today. If you wanted to move to all-electric vehicles in America tomorrow, do we produce enough critical minerals? Where are we going to get the minerals from? Could we do it without relying on minerals from Russia, China, Chinese-controlled mines? I mean, the Secretary of Transportation the other day said, well, put everybody in electric vehicles. Can you kind of run down the possibility of doing that, what it would take, how many years, and what it's going to cost to get those minerals?
We couldn't do it ourselves. There's no way we can do it ourselves. The U.S. is currently about 12% of total non-fuel minerals tonnage, and a lot of that is aggregate for construction. We don't produce enough to support what companies are trying to build out now in terms of battery manufacturing capacity, or for that matter, semiconductors fabs in manufacturing to support all of the other things that are needed. I mentioned Chinese dominance. I've talked about this in House Energy and Commerce testimony and other hearings. The mining industry is as much under pressure as other basic industries are to make investments and to be able to find opportunities to execute on, to be able to bring those into the market. And it doesn't help when you have an uncertain political context in your own market. So this is really an issue. There are best practices for the mining industry out there, by the way. The mining industry responds to what comes out of the World Bank, to the ICMM, which provides cross-cutting standards for companies for ESG and best practices in mining operations. So it's not like the industry is not responsible or not looking at how to be responsible going into the future. But it's the same problem. You have to have access to the minerals, you have to have the capital to develop the minerals, you have to have the supply chains to support them. One last point about this. Everything that we're planning in the United States, the announcements, the joint ventures, invariably include partners that have supply chains that they can bring into our country. That means international sourcing. So we're going to continue to rely on metals and materials that are produced outside of the United States because that's the fastest way for the industry to try to accelerate, given all the timeframes that are under discussion.
Thank you. Senator Cortez Masto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's talk facts, because what I hear coming from some of my colleagues